It's level, but we don't really have any idea. We don't have any plans. We're trying to figure out how am I going to win this game. Well, today's game is going to show you how you can win an equal middle game. Even with the black pieces, take control, a little bit of calculation, and really playing the in game in a beautiful way to win what could be a very drawish game. So we're going to look at this game from 1938, the AVRO Championship between Reuben Fine with the white pieces and Paul Keres with the black pieces. Now we get a Roy Lopez straight off the opening. As we see, it's amazing how these players from 1938 play all the book moves and best moves, even and many moves deep. And so we find ourselves really after this trade-off, and we see here that white is up a pawn, but of course black has this pawn, and with attacking the queen here, guaranteeing that he is going to win that pawn back. So get a trade off of the queens. Here we are, move 14, queens are off the board, we're into the middle game, looking towards the in game, very drawish looking, no advantages. How can Keres with the black pieces take control and win this game? Well, we're going to look at a real masterpiece here. So first of all, we get d4, attacking the pawn on e5, and obviously here Keres decides to trade off his bishop for the knight on f3, doubling white's pawns and giving him an advantage in the long term, the in-game. But of course, it's only a slight advantage here. Now, attacking, of course, with this piece, this pawn, so he decides, Reuben Fine decides to go king to f, or to g2 rather, just to protect that pawn and control things. But it's interesting that the computer actually says it better off would have been just to get rid of that knight, get rid of the problem, and that would have made things easier down the way. So nice move by Keres now, attacking the light square bishop. Bishop goes to c4, and then after trade-off of the pawns, we get the knight back to e6, attacking this pawn here. So we get pawn pushed, knight jumps out the way to c5, and we get knight c3. Again, this game is very balanced. The computer has shown a very slight advantage towards to black, but it's very minimal at this point in the game. Then we get knight to c8. The computer, of course, prefers the idea of pushing the bishop here, attacking the light square bishop, but Keres decides to go with the knight to c8 run. Then we get rook to e1, attacking our bishop here, but it's protected for the time being. So then we get king to f8, and then we get rook to e2. Now the rook to e2 is a mistake here, and we get f5, not the best response, and then we get knight to b5, knight to b6, and here's where the fireworks really begin for the whole game. So again, game's extremely level. We get b3, a great move, cementing the light squared bishop here, and if you take, well then you've strengthened your pawns, and we're into an extremely drawish in-game with the four pawns all looking at each other right here. So what do you do in this? Well, we get Keres takes the pawn with knight to d5. Best move on the table, and instead of taking, we get knight to d4, and then we get this beautiful move. Really, this is a great move, knight to b4. And here we get an inaccuracy. We get bishop to d2, and then we get the pawn push. So we get a trade-off of bishop for the knight, and after rook takes, we get this great move. Now this is where real fireworks begin. Knight to c6, which is a great move by Reuben Fine. So he's feeling happy here. He can take this bishop on his next go. He's also attacking the rook, so clearly you want to move your rook and continue the game. But what happens in the game? Well, we get the rather magnificent pawn takes c4, takes the bishop, doesn't mind losing the rook, And after taking the rook, can we see the ID that Keres had? Well, now we do, because we've got this wonderful c to b3 move. And as we can see, we can now move the bishop. Protecting this pawn is currently protected by the knight. You can't get to it because this pawn, this square is blocked off. Really a great move. Next move, we get knight to d5, attacking the bishop. But after a wonderful move of knight to d3, we see that Keres is in full control, attacking the knight. But we see another great move, pawn to b2. Isn't this just wonderful to see? You can't take the knight, because if you take the knight, well, you give up a queen. So what does he do in response? Well, what can you do? He goes rook to d1, and this is now a very sorry position for Reuben Fine. The game is completely lost. Now, we can understand Keres goes here, he goes, this is an inaccuracy in the game. He goes c5, we get king to f1. The whole idea, of course, is that he wants to be able to bring his king over to give a bit of protection and to stop these pawns from promoting. And Keres says, you know what, I'm just going to push again. Then we get rook to b1. Of course, he can't take, because, of course, it is protected by the knight. Then we get bishop to c5. Really, so many problems for Fine here. We get king to e2, and of course Keres takes the pawn, and then we get this brilliant move, c3. Now this is brilliant because you cannot take with the king. If you take with the king, you have the wonderful move bishop to e3, and you cannot take back the bishop, because then with the pawn push, it's all over Red Rover. You take with a check and you win up the rook on the next move. So really a wonderful move here, this c3 move. So what's Reuben Fine do in response? Well, he goes knight to c2. Knight to c2, a good move, trying to do his best here, giving himself the opportunity to take the knight in the next move. But here we see an absolutely fabulous move, and another brilliant move by Paul Keres. We get knight to e1. What's the idea of knight to e1? Well, you cannot take, because if you take, again, you cannot, because we have the same situation where you end up losing. And of course, if you try and go rook, there's nothing you can do, because you get the same situation, takes, and we get a queen. So what a wonderful move this really is. And here Keres is in complete control of the game. What does Reuben Fine do? Well, he tries to shore up things by trying to get control of this square. We get bishop to c5, which is a mistake and an opportunity to save the game, in the sense that you could get rook to e1 here, and if you try taking on a3, you've now got d3. And because this is a light square, it means, well, you could save the game, quite possibly. But of course, this is not what happens in the game. We get a3, we get the bishop to attack, which was a mistake. We get king takes, bishop takes, king plays there, bishop around, and it's a very simple game where these pawns are being taken for everything they're worth. And then we just get the slow strangulation of the position, and this is really textbook stuff here. What a great move this was, f4, and after g5, the bishop attacking again, and Keres again not playing the best moves at the very end, but he's in such a wonderful position, he cannot lose this game. King takes on g5, and after pushing the pawn and the king, there's nothing that can be done. And we see a wonderful victory for Paul